Let's do me a favor. Welcome everybody who's joining in online or on demand or on our podcast. Thanks for jumping in. We appreciate you always. And if you're just now jumping in or listening on YouTube or our podcast, we've just had a beach ball run all around our auditorium. We've had a lot of fun. Today we're wrapping up our summer series called The Way. And what we've been doing is moving through this section of the Bible called the Sermon on the Mount. It's called that because it's a message that Jesus gave, and he was on a mount, he was on a hill, speaking to this large crowd. And in this, in Matthew 5 through 7, that's the chapters we've been in all summer, Jesus taught on all kinds of topics, and really he described a new way to live that really applies to us today. And if you've missed any of the weeks, we've had a lot of teachers come through this summer, a lot of really good stuff. Go to our YouTube channel or our podcast on Spotify or Apple Music or santacruzbible.org. There's always content there. If you're stuck on the 1 or stuck on 17 or you just want something encouraging at the gym or whatever, it's all there 24 hours a day, so don't miss out on that. So Jesus has been giving this message. He's been talking about stuff like relationships and anger, lust, prayer, money, judging others, and so on. And so now he comes to the end, and he's going to wrap this up. And this is what he says in Matthew 7:24. He says, "Anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents, and the floodwaters rise, and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it is built on bedrock. But anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will collapse with a mighty crash." And then the whole section wraps up by saying, when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, for he taught with real authority, quite unlike their teachers of religious law. So Jesus is having this conversation. He's kind of wrapping up all these things he said. He says, listen, what is your life built on? That's what he's kind of asking the question. What is your life currently built on? And he uses the illustration of what houses are built on, which every time I think about what houses are built on, I cannot help but think about stilt houses, okay? You know what I'm talking about when I say stilt houses, right? Those houses are kind of built up on stilts. And they're all over the country. They look different. They look all different ways. But when I was in the South, they're mostly on the beaches, right? So you'll see them on the beach and the coastlines, and the whole idea is that the ocean's going to rise, but your house is still there, right? Now, you may be inches away from sharks, but your house is still there, right? So that's kind of the idea. Now, here in California, if you go to LA and other places, these houses are mostly on cliffs. Okay, and this is actually a house that's in Los Angeles right now, currently for sale if you're looking. It really is for sale. I think it's from the movie Heat or something. Anyway, I know thousands of people live in these all around the country, these stilt houses, and maybe it's just me, but they make me nervous. When I'm driving, if you take the scenic route to LA, right, and you drive along the coast, you see them kind of hanging off the cliff, and sometimes I just get nervous looking at them. I'm like, man, I would have anxiety all the time. Like barely hanging on. That's just me. But this is kind of silly because, let's be honest, I live off of a hill in Aptos, okay? I mean, as I thought about this, and I'm pretty sure that hill is just dirt. So if I water my yard too long, I'm going to unintentionally move to SoCal, right? Like, I'm just going to happen. It's just going to slide there because it's just dirt, right? And it's interesting to me because we've all seen these houses hanging on somewhere, kind of hanging on, and you're like, oh, boy, yikes. It just kind of hits you. And Jesus is using this illustration to talk about what we build our lives on. Because what he's saying is, here's the thing that we all know. The storms of life are going to hit. And they're going to hit hard. Right? And basically, he's asking, saying to us, what your life is built on will determine whether or not you're going to weather the storm or you're going to collapse. So it's a pretty simple illustration. But what's the difference between the house on rock and the house on sand? Like, what actually is the difference? And Jesus describes it this way. He says, well, if you hear my teaching and you just move on and you don't follow it, the house collapses. But if you hear my teaching and you follow it, then you're able to weather the storm. And so what we learn is really that hearing the words of Jesus is one thing, but following them is another. So really the question that we're going to wrestle with this week is really simply this. What role did the words of Jesus play in your life? If you're being honest. Which there's no wrong answer on this, okay? But there's definitely some different varying answers of what role do they play. Because for some people, it's just these are good ideas that I come back to from time to time. For some, they'll say this is a guide for my life. For some, they'll say I don't even know that I understand half the words of Jesus, so these are things I'm trying to understand. And for others, they would say, well, I've heard them over and over again. I'm not sure if I have applied them, but I have certainly heard them. And then for others, it's kind of a mixed response. Well, I've tried some. I don't know that I've tried this one. I'm kind of a mixed thing. What does that look like for you? What role do the words of Jesus play in your life? And something that will kind of help you figure that out is this. I'm going to reread the main passage through the Message paraphrase because I think it really captures the spirit of what Jesus says, and it's a little bit more modern language. So look with me at Matthew 7:24 again in the Message. It says, "These words I speak to you are not incidental additions to your life, homeowner improvements to your standard of living. They are foundational words, words to build a life on. And if you," I love this phrase, "work these words into your life, you're like a smart carpenter who built his house on solid rock. Rain poured down, the river flooded, or tornado hit, but nothing moved that house. It was fixed to the rock. But if you use my words in Bible studies and don't work them into your life, you're like a stupid carpenter who built his house on a sandy beach. When a storm rolled in and the waves came up, it collapsed like a house of cards," right? And so this more modern version of this really kind of helps you kind of get the essence and the spirit of how Jesus was teaching it, but you also see a difference, a very clear difference, because decorations for a house and foundation of a house are two completely different things, right? I mean, decorations are add-ons, improvements, touch-ups to the exterior, where a foundation holds up everything at the core, and it's deep in the interior. So what Jesus is basically saying is there's two ways you can engage me. I'm either something that you kind of put on the wall every once in a while to look nice, right? I'm something that you're kind of using to touch up the exterior. This is a nice add-on. This is a nice thing to do every once in a while. This is a nice thing to revisit from time to time, right? Or I'm keeping the house standing from the inside out. I'm holding up the interior of you. And another way to describe it would be like, is Jesus kind of in your pocket, right? And we kind of take him out when we need him. Like, oh, time to pull, let's get Jesus out. Let's start, we're going to start praying, doing stuff right, and then kind of put it back up and kind of move on. Or is Jesus in your soul, in your heart, guiding your everyday life? Two ways that we kind of engage this, right? And Jesus tells us, here's what he wants us all to do, no matter where you are. Work these words into your life. Now that's different because that's not just hearing them and moving on. If you're working something into your life, here's what you're doing. Through practice and repetition, you're working it into the core of who you are. It's like you're trying to get a new habit or a new skill. And so what do? You take something that's not intuitive and you keep doing it through practice until it's second nature to you to do that, right? So how do we work the words of Jesus into the core of who we are? How do we take what he's saying as he's telling us and move that into a deeper level? How do we go from hearing to working these words out? How does Jesus go from just my inspiration to my foundation? How does that happen? Now, what I want to do is I'll give you some quick ways to do this, okay? And I'm going to give you 3 words that are going to help do this. I can't stand this because the first churches I went to were Southern Baptist, and it was 3 points in every Sunday. It was 3 something. Everything was 3. Even if the third point was lame, we just had to have a third point, right? So anytime I do anything in 3, it always I have these triggers of a long time ago background. But anyway, but But these are three words. They're going to help you. And this is even more Baptist. I'm going to give you an acronym to help you memorize them, which is the most Baptist thing ever, right? And that acronym is AIM. Now, some of you are like, oh, why is it AIM? Because it's our aim to work in these words, or if you don't aim, you'll miss. And it's really because it was either that or Mia or Ima. And I just went with AIM, okay? I figured like that might be the easiest one to start with. And so, plus because I think the most important one goes first too. And the A is apply. Now say that word with me, apply. Nope, that was the most zombie Return of the Living Dead thing ever. Ugh. Okay, let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, apply. That was way better. Somebody had their coffee. Okay, good. Apply. Okay, now here's what this means, okay? You take what Jesus says and you apply it. You try it out. You stop when you hear Jesus give an instruction and you say, all right, I'm going to try that. I'm going to stop, pause, I'm going to try it. And it's not thinking of the words of Jesus as like poetry or some inspirational, whatever speech or something. It's actually looking at the words of Jesus like you would look at a cookbook or like you'd look at an instruction manual, and you would say, okay, these are things that I can do. These are steps that I can take. These are things I can actually apply to my life. So when I read that instruction, I'm going to pause. I'm going to do that. And we have to remember, James 1:22 says it this way. It says, but don't just listen to God's word. You must do what it says. Otherwise, you're only fooling yourselves. So here's what's interesting, and this is a really important concept. If you're starting out in faith, if you're exploring faith, if you've been a Christian for, since Moses was in high school, whatever, you've just been around a while, it doesn't matter because this principle stays the same. If you're reading the words of Jesus or reading the Bible, it is not about how many words you read, it's what you do with the words. Okay? That's the important part. Okay? So if you didn't get through your chapter today, no one cares. No one cares. But if you got stuck at verse 2 and you're like, woo, that's speaking to me, stop there. That's what you're supposed to do, right? That's kind of why I always talk about the Bible more as a cookbook, because it is things that you can try and do. But it would be weird, right, if you had a friend who was like, I read the whole cookbook today. Well, did you try any of it? No, but it was really, what amazing recipes. Sometimes I thought it'd be a half of a cup, and it was a fourth of a cup, and it was like, woo, right? And you're like, yeah, that's not what that is. Like, you're supposed to do those things. That's not what that book is, right? Same thing with the Bible. It's do-it book. And the same thing with the words of Jesus. And I would argue to this that the teachings of Jesus are the most practical and most important part of all of the Bible, hands down. Because we clearly see who God is, and we get the instruction for today. And when I say that, that might scare some people. Like, what do you mean? Well, number one, you had a lot of Gentiles, non-Jews come into faith. They didn't have the whole Old Testament, and they're still following Jesus. And a lot of the church history books that we have from Romans on were still being written during that time. So all they had were the Gospels. The early church, that's all they had. And that seemed to be enough. I think they figured it out, right? But the thing is, the words of Jesus are the most important part. And because you find out how to treat others, how to navigate problems, how to connect to the purpose of why you're alive, grow spiritually, on and on and on and on. The best thing you can ever do with anything that Jesus says is actually apply it. So let's take an example. Let's say you have a neighbor that you cannot stand. Does anybody have a neighbor that they can't stand? This is a safe place. Unless your neighbor's sitting next to you, then you're kind of like, one time I invited my neighbor to church, and then you asked me that right in front of everybody. You have this neighbor that you cannot stand. It's a jerk. You don't agree with him on anything. His dog is loud. You don't agree with the dog on anything. Like, these are the worst. He's the worst. You can't stand it. And then you have a bad run-in with that neighbor that day. You go and you open up a Bible and you're reading the words of Jesus, and then Jesus says in Matthew 5:43, you've heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemies. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who hurt you. Okay? And you're like, ugh, right? Okay, love my neighbor. Well, my neighbor is my enemy. He's the worst, right? But then Jesus says, love your enemies, pray for your enemies. And this is where a lot of people stop and quit, because a lot of people love the grace and the love of God and the whole thing, but then it's the whole take up your cross and follow me part that nobody really likes that part. And it's kind of like, I'd like God forgiving me. I don't like me forgiving anyone else. Like, that's not going to work for me. And it's weird how, like, you get people who, like, love that stuff, but then it comes to doing something you don't want to do, and that's kind of where we go, God would never make me do anything I don't want to do. And I'm like, I don't know. I know about 66 books that would disagree, right? Called the Bible. Like, it's like that whole part. But the whole thing is, I don't want to love my neighbor. He's the worst. I don't want to pray for him. Maybe next time, Jesus. Good try. Good heart. But no, I'm not doing that, right? But let's say you apply it. Let's say you read that and you go, all right, I'm going to apply this. Let's see what happens. So you bake cookies, and then you bring him some out of nowhere. And of course, he's not going to eat them because he thinks you've, like, poisoned him or something, right? He's like, but you keep bringing him stuff. You keep being like, being nice. He's like, what are you doing? And you're just like, I just thought of you, whatever. And he's like, huh. And then you start praying for him. Now, you're not praying that he moves. That's what everybody does. Like, it's like, oh, I'm going to pray for him. God, give him, the hives and give him really bad warts and get him out of here and, like, make his house, something just like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Maybe you could pray that he moves toward God. Like, maybe God gets a hold of him, like, so he can get some peace and joy in his life and that kind of stuff. And, God help me to be, a light to him and help people around, whatever. And it was amazing. When you work the words of Jesus, when you do them, you find unexpected results. Like, things actually change if you do these things. I'm going to say it again. Things actually change when you do these things. I kid you not, but here's what happens. You will find that what he says and does doesn't bother you as much as it used to. You are less rattled and, in fact, more compassionate. And for some reason, there's some kind of strength inside of you that's just guiding you through this process. And whatever storms he's bringing, it's not rocking your mind and heart. It's not affecting you like it used to, because why? You're fixed to the rock. Because you invited God into this scenario. You're doing exactly what God has told you to do through these words of Jesus. And what you're finding is, oh, I can love this person. I can pray for this person. And I don't have to have my whole world turned upside down every time this person does something. There's a strength that comes into play. And what is that? How did it happen? You applied what you heard. So apply, okay? So that's the first one, apply. The second one is investigate, okay? Say that word with me. Ready? Investigate. Very, very much better. Like, he's going to make us do it again if we don't do it right there. Anyway, so investigate. And here's what I mean, okay? If the words of Jesus seem weird or hard to understand, investigate. Don't just stop at the surface and read something and go, well, I don't know what that means. Dig a little deeper, get under there, and you're going to find some gems that you'll literally treasure for the rest of your life. Things that you did not know that are going to completely change how you see it. And see, we know how to investigate, right? If you're single and someone asks you on a date, what's the very first thing you do? Get ready? No, you investigate. That's what you do, right? You get on social media, you check all their accounts, you cross-check things, you Google them and find all the things they've done, since high school and where they've been and where you've been doing. I mean, in an hour, you're going to have like a credit report and a background check on it. I mean, you got everything. You're just finding out everything you can. You know how to investigate. Everybody, it's a crazy thing. Some job calls you for an interview. What's the first thing you do? You're like, all right, I got to find out who are these people? What's going on? What's this company about? What's the deal? Somebody says, I'd like to be your babysitter. You're like, oh, is that right? And you're finding out everything about them, right? Tracking them down, like whatever. I mean, we know how to do this. This is what's so interesting. I mean, in the digital era, you can find any information, really, that you're looking for. It's all in there somewhere, and you know how to do it. And now here's why I say investigate. Because if I tell you to study the teachings of Jesus or study the Bible, your first response is, well, no, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to study the Bible. Man, I don't know, like, history, and I don't know Greek and Hebrew, and I don't know how to do that. That's what I pay you to do, Matt. Isn't that why you're here, Matt? You're supposed to study the Bible and tell us what's that, right? Like, I can't study that stuff. You're supposed to know what that stuff is, right? And plus, Matt, I would not know where to start when it comes to studying something intimidating like the Bible or the words of Jesus. So I'm not going to tell you to study because you know how to investigate. You know how to Google things. You know how to weed through useless information and find information that you're actually looking for, because we do this every single day. So let me tell you how to do this, because technology is amazing. Take the passage, search it. Now, some people are like, oh my gosh, Matt, do you have any idea how many weirdos are out there and how much useless and just creepy stuff is on it? Yes. But you already know that too. You know that that's never stopped you before from finding stuff, has it? Right? You're like, weirdo, 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 weirdo. Oh, there it is. You know, you've done this. You do this all the time. And so what I would tell you is you look up a passage, don't get like 2 or 3 results. Get like 12, 15, get like a bunch. Because you're going to have to read through some of them. Some of them you'll have to get rid of. But here's the thing. Read through and hear all these different perspectives. You know what's going to happen if you can learn how to do this? You will find amazing insights from not only like great preachers, but scholars, but like history. And what's interesting is here's what you're going to find. Context and content that will unlock that passage for you. It's like when I started this search, I had no idea what this means. And now, I not only know, I think what this means, but I also know the ways different people see it. And it allows me to kind of think critically and go, how do I see that? Like, how do I feel like that lines up? For example, Jesus tells a story about a good Samaritan helping someone. And here's the thing. You could read that story and go, oh, that's so nice. Some person from some place called Samaria helped someone. Wow, that's amazing. But you don't know that story was shocking at that time, because the Jewish audience that Jesus was speaking to, they despised Samaritans. So when Jesus is telling this story, he's exposing racism and prejudice and things like that. And that's why it was like shocking to that audience. But without that context, you don't get the impact. You just read Samaritan and move on. Like, you miss it, right? Or this example when Jesus tells the story of the prodigal son. And in the story, he says that the father ran to hug his son. And you read that and think, oh, what a Hallmark movie, right? What a heartwarming moment. But when Jesus said that father ran to hug his son, that audience at that time would have been like, and gasped and said, oh my God. Why? Why? Because this is what's interesting about this, right? It was undignified and disgraceful for a Jewish man to run, right? So I don't know what their track team must have looked like back then. But anyway, I don't know. That's something else to figure out, right? But when Jesus says that he ran, he's describing a shocking love that made people think like, no. God couldn't like that. Not that kind of love. That's an uncomfortable, reckless, undignified kind of love. Not that kind of love, right? Or when Jesus says this thing about, it says in the Bible, well, he talked to a woman at a well. And you're like, so what? I talked to somebody at 7-Eleven yesterday. I mean, I don't get what's important about this. And then all of a sudden you read that his disciples were shocked. Well, that's the thing. You got to understand, Jewish men didn't talk to women in public. When you start Googling stuff, you start realizing like all this insight. You're like, wait. And so when he did that, he's intentionally breaking barriers right in front of everybody. And that's the thing is you see the impact when you get context. A lot of the stuff that you'll recognize that we walk through as a church and going through really tough passages that people argue a lot about and people have different views about, you'll notice 100% of the time we get into context and talk about what was going on at that time. Why would that be that way? How can we, and learn that today? Because context unlocks the impact. And when we investigate, you learn things you didn't know. And you will see Jesus in new ways that you didn't expect. So we got to apply, we got to investigate, and then lastly, memorize. Say that with me, memorize. Memorize, right? So apply, investigate. Oh, we misspelled investigate. We need a little S in there. That's okay. Anyway, investigate. Anyway, so investigate. So if you start investigating, I don't know what that's going to happen. I'm not responsible. We're not responsible for that, okay? So apply, investigate, memorize. So here's what I want you to say. Now, guys, when I say memorize, here's what everybody says. Oh, I can't do that. I'm not good at memorizing things. Oh, man, especially like long passages. Oh, you get into that. Oh, I can't do any of that stuff. I can't remember people's names. I can't, whatever. And I get it. I'm the same way. I have a hard time with people's names. I have a hard time like remembering things and all that stuff. It's not gotten easier as I've gotten older, right? I get it. Like memorizing things is hard to do, okay? But then I remember this. For 30 years, I've known this. Now, this is a story all about how my life got turned upside down, and I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there. I'll tell you how I became the prince of a town called Bel Air. In West Philadelphia, born and raised, on the playground was where I spent most of my days, chilling out, maxing, relaxing, all cool, and I'm shooting some b-ball out to the other school. When a couple of guys, they were up to no good, started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight. My mom got scared and said, "You're moving with your auntie and uncle to Bel Air, okay?" I whistled for a cab, and when it came near, the license plate said fresh and even dice in the mirror. And anything I could say that this cab was rare, but I thought, nah, forget it. Yo, home's to Bel Air. Boom, 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 boom. I pulled up to the house about 7 or 8, and I yelled to the cabbie, "Yo, home, smell you later." Looked at my kingdom. I was finally there to sit on my throne as the Prince of Bel Air, okay? Now, yeah. You know how many churches in Santa Cruz County did the entire theme to the Fresh Prince of Bel Air? Only one. The same one that threw a beach ball at your head, so something to think about. That's the theme to the Fresh Prince of Bel Air, but here's what else it is. For 30 years, that's 206 words I've had memorized. There's even a longer passage I've had memorized that long that starts with stop, collaborate, and listen, okay? And for those of you who missed the 90s, I'm so sorry about the whole last segment. You've missed it's okay, just Google it, it's fine. Anyway, but here's that, Google it, investigate. Anyways, investigate. Anyway, so here's the thing. But the thing is this, is that we all can memorize, because if I can memorize 206 words over 30 years, yeah. Like, well, you said it to music. Well, you can set it to music too. You can figure out all kinds of ways to memorize. How you memorize, that's up to you. But here's the thing, a great way to work the words of Jesus into your life. Put them on your phone. Put them as the backdrop of your phone. Put them on the bathroom mirror. Put it in your car so that you're looking at it and start memorizing them, because then what happens is these words become second nature. And what's crazy about it is those words of Jesus will immediately come up when you're facing a challenge or you're making a decision. It's super helpful to memorize passages, especially every day when you're going through a hard time. When you're in a rough time and you're like, I need to look at this every single day. And just to put that there and let that kind of seep in, because there's some days you're just going to forget it, and there's some days you got to remember it. But when you work in the words of Jesus, you will find yourself being guided by the words of Jesus. So let's look at AIM one more time, right? Apply, investigate. Oh, we fixed it. Look at that. The tech we have, it's amazing. Anyway, so apply, investigate, memorize. When you apply the words of Jesus, investigate the words of Jesus, memorize the words of Jesus, these words become the foundation and not just decorations. Now, why? Why do I need this? Is it because as Christians we're supposed to know everything Jesus said in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John? No. Is it to help me be a good person and a good little Christian and help people cross the street? No. The reason why we need to know it, remember why Jesus said, because the storms of life will hit. That's a promise. And if all we have at the very core of who we are is our intellect and our instinct and our intuition, we're in trouble. Because you've lived long enough to know this. It's something that we keep forgetting. Life hits harder than we expect in ways we never expect for longer than we expect. And too many times we find, as smart as we are, as strong-willed as we are, we go up against a Goliath. And we're like, this problem is huge, and I did not see this coming, and I don't know what to do, and I'm at my wit's end. I'm at the end of myself. When things are falling apart like that, you need a steady, timeless foundation. You need somewhere you can place your trust and hold on when anxieties and doubts are gnawing away at you. You need something beyond yourself, a peace beyond this, a hope beyond this that you can hold to and help you persevere, because you got to have something beyond yourself when you're at the end of yourself. Clear steps that I can take when everything is chaos and I can't think straight. But I can take this step. If the words of Jesus to us are just good ideas and Hallmark cards, we're going to find ourselves sinking and crashing one day, because the foundation is just us and nothing else. But if the words of Jesus become a guide, and we work those into the core of who we are, not only will you make it through the storm, but you will have grown all along the way. You don't need good ideas. You need a guide. The new life that Jesus offers us constantly is an invitation to take your life off of shaky stilts that's making everyone else nervous, to get it off those shaky stilts and to put your life on a firm, strong, never-failing foundation where you are finally fulfilling the purpose of why you're here. This whole series has been called The Way, and we've been seeing all these ways that Jesus invites us to, but it's really all still one way. And that way is Him as the truth, as the life. He's inviting us not to just a better life. He's inviting us to a fulfilling life that will be hard, that will be challenging, and there absolutely will be days that you want to give up. But I can get through anything when I know that the God who holds me in His hands is a foundation that no storm can ever wash away, and that He is with me all the way through. The question is for you, which way will you go today? Where do you need to come to Jesus and say, hey, you need to come all the way into the foundation? And it's time for me to do less acknowledging you and more following you, because I need you in my life, and I need you to guide my life. Let's pray together. Father, we just come to you in this moment, thankful for those who are listening, thankful for those who are here. And we ask that you just help us to be honest about how do we see the words of Jesus? Do we see them as good ideas? Or do we see them as the most important guidance we have? Father, help us to apply what you've called us to do, to investigate when we're not sure, to memorize, to help work those words into the very core of us. Because you offer us a new foundation. God, sometimes we are disturbed at the world we live in and how much upheaval and change and strife can happen in like literally minutes. But Father, we know that no matter what's going on out there and no matter what's going on in us, that you never change, that you never fail, that you never let us go, even in those moments when we walk away. So Father, we just come to you and we ask you just to take over at the very core of who we are. Maybe there's some that don't have a relationship with you. And I pray they'll pray with me that I confess that I'm a sinner. I have messed up. But I know that there's forgiveness for me through Jesus' death and his resurrection. Forgive me. completely. Cleanse me completely. And starting today, just make me new, because I believe that Jesus is Lord, and today I follow him with all of my heart. May all of us follow you. We're not going to do it perfectly. Some days we're not even going to do it close to well. But may we cling to you and find that you are always more trustworthy than we imagine. May we trust you even deeper. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
That was so good. Let's all stand together as we enter into another time of worship.